Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Sunday. The sun is shining. It's a glorious day over here in the UK. I hope you're doing well wherever you are watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I do appreciate it. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. Right, got plenty to talk about today. Loads of questions from you guys. Really wanted to get through a few of those today. So I'm going to get stuck into them very, very soon. We're going to talk about Thomas Partey and the big decision Arsenal face when it comes to replacing him, if, and I repeat the word if, he does end up leaving Arsenal, which is not certain yet this summer. Talks may well be going slowly or even at a standstill, as some have suggested, but a final decision has yet to be taken. So we don't know if he's going to go, but if he does go, we're going to talk about the decision about how Arsenal replace Thomas Partey. Lots of you have been sending questions in about it and comments in about it over the last couple of days. So I thought I'd chat about it today and sort of look at the different options that Arsenal have available to them when it comes to replacing such a big figure, who's been such a key player in the squad for such a long, long time. So we'll talk about that. I can talk about Santi Cazorla because I love talking about Santi Cazorla, and football can be a horrible thing, especially modern football. It can all be about money. It can be depressing. You can sort of lose sight of why we all love this game. But last night, we've got a reminder of why football can be absolutely brilliant. And Santi Cazorla is front and center of that. So I'm going to talk about that in today's show and other bits and pieces as well. But as I said, we're going to start by talking about Thomas Partey and the decision that Arsenal have when it comes to potentially replacing Thomas if he does go. Now, again, I'm reiterating no final decision as far as I'm aware. Maybe it has, but as far as I'm aware, no final decision yet has been taken. And, talks haven't completely come to an end when it comes to Partey and Arsenal. So while that's the case, there's always a chance that an agreement can be reached, a compromise can be reached, and he does end up staying. At the moment, kind of feels like we're moving away from that because these have been going on for a long time and no agreement has been reached. But that can turn like that. A compromise can happen and he could stay. But if he does go, then Arsenal got a sort of big decision to make when it comes to potentially replacing him. And as I said, I've had loads of you guys sending in comments about the situation. I've just put two of them up here talking about it. We've got the first one from Mikey there. He says, I saw this morning Arsenal looking at Christian Norgaard, who I think would be a great fit, but between transfer fee and wages, I feel that overpaying Partey would still be the cheaper option. And then Thang down below there says, hey, Charles, if Partey leaves, there's a player from Sevilla, French player, Norgaard and Agoume, who seems to be hot property that many clubs are trying to sign, including Arsenal. Any concrete link from Arsenal? And I think they're just those two names that have been mentioned there, I think kind of sum up the decision facing Arsenal when it comes to replacing Partey. Because if Partey goes, and I've said this before, if Partey goes in the same summer that Jorginho goes, I think Arsenal have to sign a replacement for those two departures. Really key players, really experienced. I don't think the arrival of Zubimendi, who obviously is going to be the starting midfielder, but I still don't think that arrival covers the loss of two such big players as Jorginho and Partey. I think you have to go out and sign a replacement for them in the squad and for the minutes. As I said yesterday, Zubimendi's obviously coming in as the main replacement, or whatever you want to call it, for Thomas Partey, because if Zubimendi's fit, Zubimendi's going to start as a six as long as he settles fairly quickly into the Premier League. So Partey basically becomes, at the moment, Jorginho's replacement in the squad. So the minutes that Jorginho got last season potentially would be the minutes that Partey would be looking at, or probably a bit more than that, if you see what I mean. He'd probably rotate a bit more with Zubimendi. But if he goes, then you're left with a gap in the squad that definitely needs filling for me. And I'm not sure internally, unless you're moving Lewis Skelly into a midfield role, I'm not sure internally you can really sort of cover for that. Yes, you've got Declan Rice who could do it, and then you've got the left 8 role. Rice plays, Havertz, Marino, whatever you can fill in. But I still think you need one. And the two sort of difference of stages of player that have been mentioned here, when you've got Norgaard, who's 31, turning 32 fairly soon, I think. And then you've got Agoume, who's like 23, just really sort of emerged, had a brilliant first season at Sevilla after moving from Inter Milan, and is just beginning to sort of really emerge in his young career. So you've got two players at very different stages of career, and that sort of poses the question of which way do Arsenal go here if they are going to bring in a replacement for Partey and Jorginho. My preference here would be someone at sort of Agoume's um, age profile rather than going down the age. I can understand why someone like Norgaard, and I don't know if there's any truth to this Norgaard link, by the way. I'm just using this as an example, but that would be a cheaper option. Obviously, Norgaard's been very good in the Premier League for the last few years. He'd be coming in similar sort of age to Partey, better injury record. Similar sort of age to Partey, would be relatively cheap, I would imagine. I can't, transfer fee wouldn't be huge if something would be agreed with Brentford. Wages wouldn't be massive, so you'd be saving money, no doubt about that. But then, would you, I think Norgaard's a good player. I think he's proven that. But is Norgaard Thomas Partey? No, he's absolutely not. So you're sort of bringing in a player as that aging squad player, basically, but maybe the drop off in quality might be would be bigger than if you kept Partey, if you see what I mean. But if you sign someone like Agoume, then you've got a player you could really work on. I don't think he necessarily needs the minutes that more minutes than he probably would get. I think he'd be fairly happy, maybe for a season or two. But as long as you use the squad well and you rotate, you can keep him happy with the amount of minutes you could give him. And so that would be the profile that I would be going for. I haven't seen Agoume loads. People are sort of raving about him at the moment, following the links to Arsenal, and saying he's got qualities to sort of emerge as a really good midfielder. So again, I'm using him as an example rather than absolute certainty of that would be the guy that Arsenal would go for. But I just think it's really interesting to think which sort of profile. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it now. So if Partey goes, and again, that's an if he goes, what sort of profile would you go for to replace him in the squad? Remember, because you're talking about this, whoever comes in is basically a squad player. It's not a first team starter, because we know Zubimendi's going to start. We know Declan Rice is going to start. We know Martin Odegaard's going to start. So whoever comes in is a squad player. Will get minutes, will start games, but it is a squad player at the end of the day. So which profile do you think you should go for? An older player who could come in, provide the experience, kind of like when Arsenal signed Jorginho from Chelsea, I suppose, or a younger player in the sort of fit of an Agoume or someone else who could come in, continue to develop on the job, and could potentially transform into a world beater in a couple of years' time. So love to get your thoughts on what is a really big decision facing Arsenal. I mean, you could do the internal thing as well, as I said, of moving Lewis Skelly and going out, signing a Jarell Hato, for example, to be that left back option or another left back option. And then if he needs be, you can play Miles Lewis Skelly in midfield. So there could be internal solutions to it. So give me your thoughts on how Arsenal, if Partey goes, how Arsenal replace that sort of figure in the squad. Young, old, internal. Love to get your thoughts on it. Let me know in the comments below. Right, on the subject of midfielders, one of my favourite ever Arsenal players. Love him. Certainly my favourite player of the Emirates era. And as I said at the start, football, it can be a bit depressing at times. You sort of look around on what it's all about now, and just money grabs absolutely everywhere. It can kind of depress you. You can kind of lose faith in the game and why we love it and all that sort of stuff. But what happened yesterday with Santi, as I said, one of my favorite players, it just brings that sort of belief back a little bit of there is still beauty in this game, that great things just still do happen. He's gone to his boyhood club to see out the end of his career after all of the horror injuries he suffered at the latter stage of his time at Arsenal. He's gone back to his boyhood club, basically not being paid. He said, pay me the bare minimum that you are legally allowed to pay me. I just want to play for you. Giving away so much money he gets for other things, bonuses, all that sort of stuff, giving that away as well. He's gone back to his hometown club, who have, nearly went out of business not so long ago, haven't been promoted, haven't been in La Liga since 2001. Goes back there, 40 years old, and gets them promoted to La Liga yesterday. 1-0 down after the first leg in the playoff final. Santi, who missed that first leg, back in the team for this one, scores the equaliser yesterday that sparks the comeback, and they end up winning 3-1 after extra time and get promoted. Oviedo back in La Liga for the first time in over 20 years. It's just such a brilliant story. You look at the pictures, if you're watching on YouTube, of the fans that invaded the pitch, Santi being carried out on people's shoulders. I'm not sure who that is. I'm not sure if that's a fan or the goalkeeper or something that he's on the shoulders of there. Scoring a goal. He scored the goal in the semi-final as well to get him into the playoff final. the scenes on if you go onto Oviedo's socials, you can see the scenes in the city after the game yesterday and the celebration. Santi on the microphone, like leading the fans, singing. It's just so brilliant to see, and you can see on social media the absolute love that Arsenal fan for Santi, because everyone's talking about it. Everyone's delighted for him. I saw Xabi Alonso at the Club World Cup in his press conference for Real Madrid, paying tribute to Oviedo, but specifically pointing out Santi Cazorla as well. It's just such a wonderful story that just brings back a little bit of faith you might have lost in football. Kieran, our resident Santi Cazorla spy over in Oviedo, who owns a restaurant or cooks at a restaurant that Santi regularly comes to visit, was straight on in the chat yesterday, or in the comments section on YouTube. Good to see you, Kieran, there saying, "Oh, Santi Cazorla, Real Oviedo are in the first division. Vamos, Caballanes." I'm sorry, I probably absolutely butchered that, I'm afraid. Santi scored. Brilliant. Delighted for you. Delighted for the town, the city. When Santi next comes to the restaurant, I'm sure you can say everyone in the Inside Arsenal community says, "Congratulations, Santi. Well done." It's been brilliant. Obviously, we wait to see what Santi does now. Do you come back? Do you carry on playing at 41 in La Liga? Is this the perfect way to sort of bring down the curtain on your playing career? We'll wait and see what he does. But yeah, for now, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm so delighted for him. Right, moving on. These comments, these quotes were a couple of days ago, came out from Jurriën Timber. I wanted to talk about them yesterday on my show, and I totally forgot. So I really wanted to include them today, just in case you haven't seen it, because I think it's just a really good insight into what players do when they're injured. We know obviously Timber underwent an operation at the end of last season, before the end of last season, a couple of games before, so he missed the Southampton game. With the sort of ankle heel injury that he'd been suffering of and been playing with for a long, long time. And Arsenal decided once they're out of the Champions League, go and have the operation. Let's try and get it sorted ahead of pre-season. And Timber's been speaking to a Football International over in Holland about the injury and how much pain he was in. And it gives a really sort of insightful look into just how tough it was for Jurriën Timber and what players do as well to try and make sure they can still play through the pain, because we always talk about like managers like, "Oh, I should have taken him out," and all that sort of stuff. I think Timber here is sort of perfectly describes how players will sometimes keep things hidden just to make sure they want to help the team, help the and play. He said, "It got worse and worse. I had a scan. The conclusion was that I had to undergo surgery at the end of the season, but I wanted to play for Arsenal, but it was hard. Sometimes the pain was much worse. I've been through it, how it feels now. I only used to train one day before the match on trying to make it to play against PSG in the semi-final." He said, "I thought in the first leg, I have no idea how I'm going to finish this because I couldn't even run. But in the second half, I got some adrenaline again. But in the 80th minute, it was time I had to get out. I didn't train all of those weeks. I was stressing before that semi-final. It hurt so much. The manager thought Jurriën has a scan, so it can't get much worse. But he didn't see how much pain I was in." So he's just saying, he just didn't even let Arteta know how much pain he was in. Arteta knew they had the scan. They knew they were going to have an operation at the end of the season. But I think probably if Timber had actually sort of made it clear how much pain he was in to the medical staff or to the manager, maybe they would have done the surgery earlier. I don't know. But for Timber, all he was thinking about was the semi-final and playing that game and helping the team out. And I think players do that so much and we just don't really know about it. And I thought they were really, really interesting comments from him. Fortunately, it doesn't look like, playing through the pain has done him any more damage. The operation went well. Arsenal are hoping he's going to be back for the start of pre-season, as Jurriën Timber does. So yeah, hopefully no more sort of permanent damage was done by playing through that pain. But yeah, I just thought they were really, really interesting comments. Anyway, right, next up, sticking with an Ajax theme, I guess. This was kind of on Gerald Hato. Lots of you were getting in touch on this and sort of about the rumours and the speculation and saying what you think you would do. AJ says, on the Hato thing, there has to be an opportunity to sign him and then loan him back to Ajax, giving Calafiori a chance to see if he can stay fit and back up Lewis Skelly and Gabriel if he can stay fit. I don't know about that. The loan suggestion there. Max has done the same. He says, do you think it's possible to buy Hato and immediately send him out on loan like we did to Saliba? Send Hato to a stronger league to take an in-between step in his development before he joins Arsenal properly. Maybe keep Kivior off one more season with a promise we'll sanction a sale for a decent fee next summer when Hato is more than ready to deputise for Gabriel and Saliba. Dom says Hato coming in would be smart, short and long-term planning as he can develop as a squad player for the next few years. He can replace Gabriel in a few years as our starting left centre-back. I agree, though, if he comes in, somebody has to go out. Kivior still makes the most sense as his value is at the highest since he signed right now because of how well he's done for us recently. On the loan thing, I don't know. Given the money that Arsenal would have to pay for Joel Hato, I don't see a way they would loan him out. I know they loaned Saliba out. They spent a lot of money, 27 million on Saliba, and they loaned him out. I don't think you would be able to do that, Hato. I'd be very, very surprised. I'm just if that took away from something they really needed to do this summer, if you'd have to spend, I imagine, sort of what, 40, 50 million to get Hato out of Ajax. If you do that, that has to impact the rest of your summer business in terms of how much you can spend. So if you're impacting the rest of your summer business, but then loaning that player straight out and not even using him, that would concern me, I have to say. So I think if you're signing Hato, I think you're signing him to play rather than send him out on loan. I do think he's an interesting player and all of that. I keep coming back to, will this impact the rest of the summer business? And if it does, I just think you keep Kivior for me, especially if a good offer doesn't come in. And I know we've argued on this. We're not argued. It's probably the wrong word. I've said something and you guys have disagreed with it in terms of the valuation for Kivior and what Arsenal could get from him from the Italian clubs who are said to be interested. And so unless a massive offer came in, I just think it'd be more ideal that he stays and you don't worry about signing a replacement for now. I think if they could do the money and it didn't impact the summer business and you did sign Hato, kept Kivior for one season, sent Hato out so he continued to have a play for another year, then I think that's, I think you're right to bring that up. I think it's a good suggestion, but I don't see a way how it doesn't impact the rest of the summer. And I wouldn't want to do that, I have to say, because this summer is so important, especially when it comes to the two attacking options. And if you can have an extra 40 million pounds to help with that, then so be it. Mid Kemmer says, hi, Charles. Zubamendi's first number with Real Sociedad, main team, not the B team, was 36 in the 18-19 season. Maybe that is why 36 is 90% picked. Yeah, if you didn't see yesterday's video, I reported that from my understanding, Zubamendi has chosen to be number 36 in the Arsenal squad next season. That is his squad number. Again, I hadn't had full confirmation. I still haven't. That's what I've been told. And I think it's correct, but I haven't had full confirmation. So I don't go out and get the number on the back of his shirt yet. We'll have to wait and see what's announced when Arsenal do confirm the Zubamendi arrival. But from what I've heard, he's going to be number 36. And I was wondering, why has he picked that number if that is the case? It surprises me. It's not a number you'd really think. There are other numbers available to him, obviously, but maybe Midkemmer has found the reason why here. So thank you very much for sending that in. Appreciate it. Duncan has got in touch. This is on the Inside Arsenal Discord chat. Not Discord, sorry. This is on the Inside Arsenal Patreon chat. You can, if you become an Inside Arsenal member, which you can do, the link's down below. You get access to the Discord, which is for Inside Arsenal members only, but you also get access to the chat on the Patreon itself. And Duncan has got in touch on there. Says, hi, Charles. Love the show. And now my go-to daily update. Thank you very much. Throwing out a question for you. Given our assistant manager hole, if you could pick any ex-player from the past to step in now on the basis they'd love to come in, as being assistant, Bergkamp, Santi, Cesc, Big Tony, Thierry, Lehmann, Ashley, who would it be? Oh, that's a really, really tough one. I think out of the players that you've listed there, I would say Dennis. I think Santi, I would like, I think this, if Arteta replaces Cuesta, I would like him to go down a more experienced sort of route, a guy who's been around the game a long, long time as a sort of sounding board rather than another young coach. I'm not sure he'll do that, but I think that's the route I'd prefer him to go down. So I wouldn't want Santi because of that. I would want someone who's just been around a little bit longer. And as much as I love Tony Adams, I don't think he's that guy. Tony is obviously one of my ultimate heroes, but I just don't think he's that guy. I don't think Thierry is either. I think it would probably be a bit too much sort of clash of personalities there. Ashley, I think, would be, if Ashley didn't have the history that he's got with Arsenal, I think Ashley would be a really interesting choice because he's clearly a talented coach. Lehmann, again, with Thierry, I think the clash of personality, no, not for me. So that sort of leads me to Bergkamp, and I know Dennis likes working with younger players more than sort of senior players. That's always what he's tended to do when it comes to coaching. But I think I think out of that list you've named there, I think he would be my pick because of the reasons that I've just mentioned. So I'll go with Dennis. Thank you for that question, Duncan. That was a good one. Quan here has got in touch. Also on the Patreon chat, says, would Jack Wilshere provide the Wenger free-flowing football sounding board Mikel needs to bring us to the next level? World-class build-up play and then free-flowing movement in the final third. Also, Jack was in charge of under 18s when Neri and Lewis Skelly were there, as well as coaching Saka and giving him his first Premier League start as interim manager. That wasn't Jack. That was Freddie, I think, his first Premier League start. So anyway, Jack's never been interim manager. I can't think of a better person to help bring through our young attacking players like Max Dowman. Yeah, I mean, Wilshere's an interesting one. I just don't think Jack, the reason Jack left, I think he wanted to sort of step out the shadow a little bit of Arsenal and go and try something new elsewhere. Obviously, he had his sort of chance briefly in charge of Norwich when the manager was dismissed. He's now looking for another job. And I would just be surprised if Jack came back to work within the sort of coaching staff. I mean, it would be a big step up for him because it is, part of Mikel Arteta's coaching staff for the first team at Arsenal. But you're still then kind of in the shadows a little bit. And I think Jack wants to make that move and become his own manager. So I'd be surprised if he came back. And I don't think he'd really come. If he did, he'd suddenly turn Arsenal into Arsene Wenger style football. He'd still very much be an assistant to Mikel. Mikel would still play his way. So I wouldn't see Jack sort of suddenly morphing Arsenal into Arsene Wenger sort of style football at all. So yeah, no, not. It'd be a nice romantic return and all that, but I don't really see it happening just because I feel like Jack would want to sort of move away from the Arsenal bubble that he's been in and known for. I think he wants to sort of step out of that shadow a little bit, but we'll wait and see. And that's it for today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking part. Appreciate it. As always, I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Anything you want me to discuss in the show, get down into the comments, leave your comment, leave your question. I'll pull them together as always and get some of them included. Take it easy, everyone. Bye-bye.